Today we're in beautiful Sedona, Arizona, reviewing the Turner Nitrous. Oh man, I've been so excited to ride this thing ever since I learned about it at Sea Otter. Then I did the first look video. Go check that out if you're interested in this bike. This is Turner's version of an XC bike, but it's got modern trail geo. This trail's a little rocky for what most XC bikes are going to see, but it gets smoother a little later down. We've got Ardent Race tires. A little bit light duty for Sedona. Oh man, I am so excited. Some of these bikes take a handful of rides to get used to. Not this one. This one just feels very intuitive. Got some snappy steering, but not sketchy. Smooth bike, man. And it is so light. Man, you just put power down, it accelerates. This thing's lighter than my Spot Rocker carbon hardtail. A lot of us are overbiked on our local trails, which is fine. You're welcome to do that. But there's something fun about being on the perfect bike for your trails, where you're using all of its capability. I'd rather be 10% underbiked than 10% overbiked. Most people are 50% overbiked. Man, this thing is cool. Hello. Oh, thank you so much. You're good, just me. Have a great day. This is a bumpy trail for this little bike, but it's swallowing it all up. I wish I had more just super buff flow trails here, because I think it'd really shine on that stuff. But if it's shining here, it's really gonna shine on those. Turner's underselling this by calling it an XC bike. This thing's wonderful. Man, it loves to accelerate. What a great climber. This thing is absolutely beautiful. I love the lines. I love this seat tube, how it flares out into the bottom bracket shell. That gives it good stiffness side to side, but we've still got these small seat stays to help it flex. I'm not a huge fan of XC race bikes because they usually have really twitchy geometry, a really low riding position where you're hunched in aero. And it's just uncomfortable to ride for a long period of time. I don't race XC. If I did, one of those would make sense, but I just trail ride, and I ride to enjoy nature and time with my friends. So those don't really appeal to me. But bikes like this are some of my all-time favorite hardtail. Man, this thing is quick. It just rockets up hills. Reminds me a ton of my Spot Rocker. It begs you to just grab a harder gear and stand up and sprint and go faster. Wow. Seat tube angle's not super steep. Not slack, but I tend to run my saddle a little bit forward of in the middle when I'm on this. All right, now we got a little more flow, less chunk. See how this thing carves up the single track. Man, it accelerates and picks up speed well. Man, you can really feel how lightweight this bike is. But it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel delicate lightweight. My goodness. It forgot it was a trail bike for a second, thought it had a little BMX flavor in it. My goodness. Was not expecting that. This would make a killer single speed too. You'd have to run an eccentric bottom bracket or a chain tensioner. But just the nature of it would do really well. What an incredible build spec, Turner. 1-up carbon bars, 1-up dropper. Personally, I would opt for the other SID fork that doesn't have the lockout, but I know a lot of people going for this are going to want the lockout. I'd rather have a little bit of compression controls than a lockout. But this fork is not holding me back. Absolutely killer build and a killer value. It's just got the best of the best stuff on it. I find myself riding this like a single speed rather than shifting. Hello. Come on through.
Hey, are you Steve?
Hey.
Hey!
Yeah, this thing, I treat it like, man, well, partly like a BMX. Man, this is fast. Holy cow. It thinks it's a single speed, like you're in a hard gear, and it's so light and so good at power transfer that you just stand up and pedal harder in the hard gear and it just goes faster. It's not harder to pedal, it just speeds up. My goodness, this reminds me so much of my Spot rocker, except 1 degree slacker, made of metal, a little bit easier to manual, but it has that vibe where it just wants to be pushed right on the edge of control the whole time. What a bike, my goodness. I can't believe how fun and playful this is, but still sporty. Usually those two things oppose each other quite a bit. I wouldn't change a single thing on the geometry. I'm totally in the wrong gear, but I just stand up like a single speed and it picks up fast enough. Unreal. Wheels feel great, fast engagement. Nothing's harsh. I can't stress the difference between a bike like this, designed by someone like David Turner, who's obviously an OG in the sport. He's been designing world-class bikes his whole life. Man! And this ride truly reflects that. This bike has so much special sauce. A lot of people are looking for a good enough hardtail for their budget. While it is a good budget, this bike should be considered by those of you who really want something special. Not a stiff frame at all. Not quite as smooth as a Newhouse Metalworks Hummingbird Steel, but it's a little snappier in acceleration. I'm at a loss for words. This is night and day from 95% of the other hardtails that I ride. Instead of dreading a hill ahead of you, just put in a few more cranks and you're up it. I can't believe how well this handles this chunk. It shouldn't be this good in these big 6 to 8 inch rocks. Oh man, that is too fun. I've now ridden close to 100 hardtails on the channel. And a lot of people think, they all ride the same. I'm just going to buy the cheapest one that comes with SRAM GX. You are missing out. The difference between these really, really elite special hardtails and most of the pack, I'm going to give most hardtails like a 60, maybe 70% out of 100 if they're great bikes. These special bikes like this and a few others are in the 95 range. The difference between this and like an everyday hardtail, let's see, like Trek Roscoe, Specialized Fuse, even like a Santa Cruz Chameleon, those are all in the 70 and below. But the gap between this and those is so noticeable. And even a new rider would notice. This bike is not for the people that are wondering, can it fit a 150 fork and can I slacken it out more? If that's what you're looking for, you've missed the point of this bike, and they've got another model for that. This bike is perfection as it is. It's been a while since I've been at a loss for words on a review. The price is right, the build spec is right, everything is right. I could even fit a 180 dropper in here. I love that. Now, one caveat, this isn't the bike I would pick for my black diamonds and double black diamonds, and that's not really what it's for. So while I say this bike is pretty much perfection, it's perfection for what it's intended to do, and then a little more. So many people have 170, 180 mil enduro bikes that they're out riding all the black diamonds and double black diamonds. And it's sad how many people ignore the flowy blue and green trails near their house. And I get why they do, because they've got these big enduro bikes, and big enduro bikes aren't fun on those flowy, kind of flatter trails. But if you have those flatter trails near you, and most people do, there are more blue and green trails than black trails in the world. If you've been ignoring the flat trails near you, or the buff trails, or the non-technical trails, something like this will completely wake them up. And I can have just as much fun, if not more, on a bike like this on greens and blues than a shreddy bike on double black diamonds. There's just something so much fun about riding a bike to its absolute limit, and this bike begs you to do that. There are 4 or 5 other bikes that are just as good in the same category, and they all have a little bit different flavors. If you want to pick my brain on how those differ and which one I'd recommend for you, I do that over on Patreon. It's a paid service. I'd be happy to help you over there. Otherwise, feel free to keep enjoying my free reviews. It climbs extremely well. Cornering, I don't have to do anything crazy. I'm on these tiny little XC race tires in Sedona where it's loose, super dry. We need rain. It's hooking up everywhere because the geometry is perfect. When I talked to David Turner, he said I had the chainstays tucked in a little bit on a previous version, but it took too much weight off of the front tire. So I extended them just a little, and then I got the weight balance where I wanted it on the front. That is the type of thing that a true bike designer focuses on, instead of just the features that you get in a catalog and then press go and collect your frames from Asia. There's no one thing that really makes this bike stand out. It's just that all the little details are done so well that when you accumulate them, it makes for a truly outstanding ride experience. I'm extremely impressed with this thing. This is going to be such a hard bike to send back. It's one of the best in the class of these trail bikes that just make blue and greens exciting. I got a little climb to get back to the car, then I'll share my final thoughts. Hopefully I can come up with some more words to actually describe how it rides other than amazing and great. I remember all the bike mags always loving the Turners they got in for review. And he'd always win all these awards for his full suspensions especially. And I know a lot of you guys ride Turners too and have a lot of love for the brand and are excited about this too. I totally get it. I would happily race XC on this. I'd happily do an endurance ride on it. I'd happily do a week-long bike packing trip on it. It's crazy for how long hardtails have existed. You'd think more companies would have their bikes styled like this, but so many companies fall short. I always encourage my patrons to not just look for the best way to save 50 bucks. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Bikes are way more expensive than they should be. But if you're gonna spend a few thousand on a bike, get something that's really special. Not just something that's okay with good parts. Man, this climbs so well. I'd heard that these Reynolds wheels were harsh, but these are not harsh at all. Now, I'm a little biased because I love hardtails, obviously, but there's no full suspension I'd rather have than this right now on this type of trail. This hardtail, just the raw, connected feel like you're part of the trail. There's just something special about it. And a simple bike with no pivots or sag in the back or shock pressures or squeaks. Just a simple, clean machine. And it reconnects you with what you loved about riding in the first place. I'm actually designing a similar style bike with someone else, and if it can ride 90% as good as this, I will be absolutely thrilled. This thing is so special. Amazing bike. It just wants to accelerate into climbs. That is unreal. The only other bike I felt it like that is the Spot Rocker. This thing's a great technical climber. What does this bike not do well? I'm thinking. Doesn't do black diamonds well or double blacks. Wouldn't be my first choice for 10-foot gap jumps. They got another model for that with beefier construction and gussets. Man, what would I change? Maybe half a degree steeper seat angle for how I like it. But I know a lot of you wouldn't like that. And when we're only talking half a degree, you can just shift the rails of your saddle and get that half a degree to 1 degree, no problem. A few people on the first look vid were commenting on the brakes. saying, oh, I loved it all except the brakes. These brakes feel fantastic. I love them. It's just so evident that this bike was designed by someone who's been doing this their whole life. The difference between this and the competition is laughable. Well done, Turner. What a bike. Reach feels a little bit longer than it looks on paper. Could be the effective top tube I'm feeling of a slightly slacker seat angle. So I wouldn't size up on one of these. Weight balance between front and rear is absolutely perfect. It corners so well. I think what I like is you can ride it super aggressively with modern riding, but you can also ride it kind of like an old school bike. But you don't have to consciously weight the front wheel to keep it from spinning out. It corners so naturally. And when I went for my first manual, I could not believe how easy that was to pop up. Now, I'm not a manual master, that's no secret. But I do like being able to manual through rollers, and it does that so well. This bike was an absolute treat. I had very high expectations. And usually when I have high expectations, the bike doesn't quite meet them. This bike exceeded them. Well done, Turner. I shouldn't be surprised that all your other bikes have won awards as well. What a special, special bike. So much special sauce. Absolutely nothing about the ride that I would change. And that's saying a lot. I can find one or two things I'd change geo-wise. This thing is just the complete package, and what an absolute joy to ride. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.